Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We're going to talk about the physical side of football today. Nick and I were chatting over the last few weeks. It's something that we're getting asked a lot of questions about. There's a lot of one-to-one requests coming in at the minute, and Biggie seems to be, can we help them with aggression and that sort of stuff, which is it's probably a conversation for another time because working on aggression with a one-to-one is nigh on impossible. But it's obviously on people's minds at the moment. We spend quite a bit of time going up to academies and stuff as well. That aggression and will to win, desire to get stuck in, and all that sort of stuff. You see it a lot in those kids up there. Scouts when they're coming down are asking us about it as well. Is what are the kids like from an aggression point of view that they quite like. So we just think it's probably a good topic to discuss, to give parents a bit of help as well as to what we do at Foot Tech, maybe how you can help your child with the physical side of things, and coaches as well. Some ideas for you guys. So yeah, what do you think, Nick, at the moment? How's it all looking?
Yeah, as you said, it just seems to be quite popular at the moment with people asking us about it and how they can, get their children to be more tough. Resilience always the word that comes up, and that side of the game with tackling. And I think as well as getting them to be stronger themselves in the tackle and the physical thing, I think a big step forward is getting them used to being tackled and comfortable being tackled. And one of the things that we've always done at Foot Tech is to kind of let the game roll wherever possible. So we are not coaching a team in a match. It's not an official match. We don't have referees, things like that. It's just training sessions that we do. So there are times when a player is fouled, and in a real game it would be a foul and it would be a free kick. But in that current situation, perhaps maybe the player who's been fouled has managed to ride that challenge, has still got possession of the ball, and is able to move forwards. For us, instead of stopping it and giving a free kick, we think there's much more benefit of they've played on after getting a knock. They're now dribbling the ball, so they're getting that learning and development there. Because our focus isn't teaching them the logistics of the game. It's about that individual player development. So I think if a player can get used to getting contacts and getting knocks and carry on playing, that's going to be good for them. In a match, they would get a free kick in that situation, but it's just good that they can handle it, I feel.
Yeah, yeah, and what we're seeing is we've obviously got these parents asking us for help with that. How can we help their child become? I don't want to say aggressive because it sounds wrong, but you know what they mean. It's coming from a good place. The child's maybe a little bit timid, doesn't want to go into tackles, doesn't like being tackled, these sorts of things. And some people are coming at that from the football point of view, so they're wanting their child to try and progress in football, which is fine. And as I said there, the academy thing, it's a you notice it when you go up there. You're almost shuddering at some of the tackles you see up there. I love it, but it's there's that, but then there's also the thing that we're trying to do. We hopefully some of our kids go on to these things, fantastic, but we're not bothered. We're trying to help the whole child, aren't we? That holistic development as well. So talking there about your character building, your resilience, just being able to handle themselves a little bit more. That's what we're using football for and sport for. So we wanted to talk today about that side as well, and not just the purely like using this to progress with their football. It's what we're doing to help children. As I say, that holistic development as well. So I think the thing that I'd made a note on was that you've got those parents, but then you've also, as I said, but you've also got your parents that are really upset when they see their child being fouled, um, or being tackled hard, and these sorts of things. And it's maybe to help those parents listening as well to understand that it's not always a bad thing. Nine times out of ten, it's not a bad thing. Because we were talking before, weren't we, that I can't remember. I don't know how many sessions we've done in the 11 plus years we've been going, but I'm struggling to remember more than a handful of times when I've seen a child deliberately go and foul somebody, deliberate, maliciously try and hurt somebody. It's very, very rare. And what we were saying was that a lot of the time it's children that are mistiming tackles because they're learning to tackle. It's a hard skill tackling. It's tough. It's tough to coach and it's tough to do. but it comes with time, particularly with the little ones. It's a process, and it comes from playing more football and getting used to doing it more. We can show them little bits, body position, don't dive in, and all that, but essentially they just need to be playing, trying to tackle more, and it comes. So we were saying before, weren't we, that it's easy to get really emotional about it and be really upset about seeing your child get fouled, but it's not often that the other child is meant to do it, is it?
Yeah, no, that malicious intent that you're talking about is the key thing. And if we ever see a child deliberately try to hurt or kick or injure another player, then obviously that's dealt with in a completely different way. But as you've already made the point, we touch wood, very, 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 very rarely see anything like that. We do see fouls regularly, and again, the main reason for that is because it's children learning to play the game, learning to coordinate their bodies with the football as well. And if you think about a tackle, if you're trying to tackle someone, the ball is usually very close to that person's foot and very
Mm.
close to that person's body, so it's not a massive error to miss the ball and hit the foot instead. It's for people when you've played football, you just accept it, don't you? You're going to get fouled, you're going to get little kicks on you, and it's very rarely that someone's set out to hurt you. And if you can just acknowledge that and start to look at it as a positive, right? Okay, yeah, he's been fouled there. He hasn't started crying. He's got up. He's carried on. Then there are positive things to get
Yeah.
out of it. Um, and also thinking about the child that has done the foul, again, if there's no malicious intent, if they've just tried to win the ball and they've made a mistake, that's all that's happened really. And I think sometimes there's an expectation that we're gonna uh, tell that child off or say, no, you can't do that. I think 99 times out of 100, that child already knew they couldn't do that. They didn't try to do it. They tried to do something else. And me telling them not to do that next time, I wish it worked. I wish coaching was that simple, but it's not. I can tell them off quite sternly. I can have a nice conversation with them, and they will say, "Oh yeah, no, I need to get the ball, not the foot." And 2 minutes later, they can foul someone again without trying to do so. So I just think it's important to remember that and to just kind of let those moments ride and try to look at the positive. Be proud when your child is able to carry on playing even though they're getting little kicks and bumps and knocks and stuff along the way.
Yeah, it's just understanding that the world might not be falling in if the child gets fouled. They might actually be all right. Because what we are going to talk about soon is some of the maybe little tactics and tips that you can use as a parent if your child is upset at being fouled or is continuously being fouled. There's going to be some advice for you there. But yeah,
Yeah,
sorry, go on, Nick.
yeah, because we'll often see a child get fouled and maybe they've gone down and they're hurt, and it's one of those. And this is not like that we're not prioritizing health and safety and things like that, but it's just experience from working with children, and you can tell a lot of the time that they're not really as hurt as they might think they are. They're probably initially a bit shocked that someone's kicked them, or a child just thinks, "Oh, I've been kicked, so I must be hurt," even if they're really not. And a lot of the time, we're just saying, "Yeah, you're all right, on you go, on you go," and they jump up and carry on playing, and within 3 or 4 seconds, they are all right again, and they hopefully will take that on next time and be able to build on it and just stop spending that time on the floor. And the example I always go to for anyone who's got kids themselves, I'm sure you would have seen this, but when a child might fall over and cut the knee and be bleeding, but they don't see it. They haven't seen the blood, and they'll go and play, and they might go and play happily for like half an hour or something like that, and then all of a sudden they'll look down and they'll see blood, and they'll burst into tears and they'll start limping, going, "My knee, my knee, my knee," and you know that they're not in pain because you've been watching them run around happily for half an hour. It's just the shock of seeing that blood there, and I think that's the same a lot of the time when they get fouled. If they get fouled, knocked, fallen to the floor, there's a bit of shock. They're like, "Oh, something bad must have happened to me. I need to react in a way that's suitable to that." Whereas, yeah, they don't need to. They're all right. They're all right. Go again.
Yeah. Because we all want we're parents. We all want our kids to be tough, and that's not, I'm not talking there about tough in the way of like walking around. It's not that. It's just, yeah, dealing with those little setbacks, those little grazes and bumps and bruises that are going to happen, regardless of whether in sport or not. But the beauty of having your child in sport, and particularly a contact sport like football, is that they can develop that, but you've got to allow them to do that and accept that it's going to happen. So rather than worrying too much about it and feeling like you need to jump in, it's if your child gets fouled, it's like you reframe it. Brilliant. What a
Yeah,
good
I agree.
chance for him to develop a little bit of resilience. That's a tick in the box for today. It's that of course there's going to be those times when maybe you do need to have a conversation with the coach, whatever else. We'll talk about that shortly. But we were saying before that we meet so many children now from doing PE in primary schools, huge eclectic mix of kids, different backgrounds and all that sort of stuff. But you often get those kids that as soon as a little nick happens or a little trip or whatever, they're straight over to you and they're moaning and teasing their eyes, whatever. They're not hurt. It's just they're not able to deal with it, and we help them with that. But a lot of the children that we coach who we know play sport, and particularly the contact sports, it's rare that happens. And I think it's because they've just had chance to be exposed to it a little bit more. So that's a big takeaway for some parents today is if you've got your kid in something like us, where you come into training in an activity that they enjoy, they might not be playing for teams or what have you, and these sorts of things happen, is just see it as part of the whole development process. It's not, we're not here just to make them better at football. It's the full development of the child, like we said.
And your response to it can really help with that. Like the example just given about kids seeing blood and stuff like that. A child that gets fouled, that in that first moment, they might be a bit uncertain to how to react. Let's say a bit shocked at being kicked and ends up on the floor or whatever. If your reaction to them is, oh my god, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Then that's probably telling them maybe you're not okay and you should be hurt here. Whereas if your reaction is, yeah, well done, off you go. All right, okay, yeah, I'm all right, off I go. It really is as simple as that. It's just some very basic psychology.
Yeah, definitely. So you touched on before some of the stuff that we do.
Mm.
So we allow play to continue as much as possible. And that's because, as we said, it's rare that a child actually means to foul. And if the child who's being fouled can ride it and continue, then why stop the flow of the session? It's just going to be a little bit, becomes a little bit boring because little ones in particular probably will foul quite a lot because, as we said, they're learning to tackle. So if your session just becomes stop start, they're not going to want to do it anymore. That's a little tip for coaches as well, listening to this that maybe are working with little ones. It's just to try and allow it play to continue as much as possible. Be positive with the child that's been fouled. Get up, continue, brilliant run, whatever. But you said before about having like that threshold as well, whereby we need to. If a child is lashing out, deliberately kicking, punching, pushing, whatever, then that's a conversation. It's maybe pulling that child out without making a big show of them in the session. It's just pulling them out and having a quick chat and making sure they understand that what they've done is not it's not within the rules and all that sort of stuff. We're not saying here that we're just going to let play continue indefinitely. It's not. It's helping those children learn. Because the other thing to think about is it might be a one-off instance where a child does lash out, but we don't know that they might have had a terrible day at school. Stuff might be going on elsewhere outside of this sport that's affecting them, and that moment in that match has just tipped them over the edge a little bit, and they've lashed out or kicked out or something like that. That doesn't mean that we need to then jump on them and start making a massive show of them and shouting at them. It's pulling them to one side and just having a chat with them and making sure they understand that it wasn't the right thing to do in a right way. If it continues and then yeah, that's a different conversation, obviously. But yeah, definitely for that. I think the other thing as well is like we said, the kids will learn how to tackle, but for us as coaches and coaches listening to this, it's maybe a few pointers like right, you sprinted in and you didn't slow down at all, and then little Josh has knocked it past you and you've kicked him by accident. So what could you do next time? And then you start to learn to do we can sprint in, then come to a stop maybe. So we're not diving in. We can get side on, all that sort of stuff. We're not going to go into the technicalities of tackling today. But what about for parents? We wanted to give parents some actionable advice with this because we appreciate that you've got the kids and the parents that are trying to push for these high levels. So we can talk about that. But then equally, you've got the parents that are not, they just want their kid to enjoy their football, but they don't want to see them getting fouled or tackled hard or whatever else. So what do we think, or what can we advise?
I think the biggest one would just be accepting it for what it is and try to look at it as a positive learning moment for your child rather than it being that initial emotional reaction as a parent of you've just seen your child getting hurt, which I get that. But if you can, try to step back, look at the bigger picture. If it wasn't a malicious foul, it was just a coming together in a game of football that happens. Um, then can you kind of be, yeah, okay, that's going to help her in the long run. That's one knock to the ground she's had a few. Every time she has a knock to the ground or whatever, she's going to get a bit more used to it. And so it's a positive thing. And again, your reaction to it, if they hit the ground and they do turn to look at you, it's just, yeah, well done, you, up you get, brilliant, and just be really, really positive with them, and look at the benefits for that. And going back, just another one that popped into it that we hadn't talked about was, we have had children who, again, no malice, but some of them, as well as being, it can be bigger than other children. So
Mm.
even though they're not trying to do it, because there is quite a big size difference, it can be more of a pronounced effect. So I know I can think of a player in particular who we've moved into an older age group who definitely wasn't ready for that older age group at that moment in time in terms of technicality and football ability, but he needed to be in there because he was being because of his size, he was being too physical for the other children in there. So that's helped him as he gone into play with the group who are able to give a bit more back. So in every situation is always different. But yeah, just what we made sure we didn't do in that situation, even though he was hurting other children without malice, you can't. I'm reluctant to blame a child for hurting someone else if they have truly not tried to do that and they're just trying to play football, which I am very confident is what we see 99 out of 100 times.
And you can reframe that again, can't you, as the parent with the smaller child who's playing against this bigger kid is what a learning experience for them. How much are they going to be able to handle themselves now from dealing with this massive kid? Because at some point they'll catch up, and that's
Well,
what.
yeah, yeah. Well, I've got a boy in one of my 8:45 groups who started with us when we did the daytime session, so 2 or 3, whatever that was, and he was good from day one. He was really good with the football, dribbles incredibly well, and then and he just kept going like that. But then he wasn't very physical at this point, and he didn't really embrace that side of the game necessarily. And that was probably more to do with because of the group that it was at that time. There wasn't really someone like that. But over time, we've had 2 players in particular come into that group, both very, very, very good players, but also very physical and big for their age. And it knocked this kid for a period initially, but by going through that and thriving, and his dad's been really positive with him through that as well, and has explained to him the importance of being able to handle that thing, and he is now uber physical himself, like really, really, really loves that side of the game and really gets stuck in. And there are now he's now doing to other children in that group what happened to him for a long time, but he has definitely improved massively as a result of being up against these 2 very, very, very physical players. That was unusual for him.
We see it a lot, don't we? And I know this is a big thing with that the relative age effect. And again another conversation for another time. But those kids that have always been that smaller child that have just stuck at it, at some point they will catch up physically to that bigger child. But they've had to fight and fight and fight and fight, and oftentimes that child will end up being better at football. Again, slightly different conversation, but yeah, I'd see it as a positive playing against the bigger kids if they're at the same age and so on. One thing I'd wrote down here is as a parent, you see your child get fouled deliberately or not, you are going to be emotional, like we said. Don't enter the pitch, don't enter the football pitch, don't enter the training pitch, whatever it is, because you're not going to do yourself any favors or your child in that instance. I mean, it's a safeguarding issue on one end, but that's again a different conversation. But it's just think about what it's doing to both your child and the other child. Like what's the end goal there? And we have seen this happen, and we know it happens across grassroots. But what is your end goal in that situation? You're going to shout at the other kid to what end?
Really, really intimidating, that
Yeah,
straight person coming onto the pitch and shouting at you, because you often don't know who this person is. It's just some adult just starts walking towards you and shouting at you.
yeah. And that's it. It's not for your child as well. Like, what are they going to be thinking? It's not. I don't think they'll be thanking you in that situation. Uh,
It could be absolutely mortifying to have your parent walk onto the pitch and try and protect you for some children. For some they might feel reassured. Yeah, you never know. But yeah, it's there's no guarantee. It could be highly embarrassing for them.
well, particularly if you're older as well. If that had
Definitely.
happened when we were playing, like when your dad used to enter pitch at 16.
Yeah, after that, and then they just took piss out of me for ever since. Well, that's what Would it, if you were a bit older and someone came on pitch, the other lads would just hammer you, wouldn't
Oh, you'd be done. You'd be done. Nick's dad didn't enter the pitch, by the way, everybody. Um, but that, yeah, joking aside, it's we deal with primary school children mainly, don't we? And to have a full grown adult come at and start shouting at another child, it's not, it ain't doing anyone any favors. And it's like, what are you hoping to gain out of that? It's not going to work. You could argue all day, well, the coach hasn't seen it, the ref hasn't seen it, or whatever. We'll come on to that, but it, yeah, you'll do more harm than good. I don't think there'll be many positives to come from that. So definitely leave that to one side.
And I
Um,
think that just comes back to again that big idea in football coaching generally, and this is how we coach and how we don't coach. This idea that I think sometimes when it happens and a parent comes and speaks to us about it, and they want us to go and speak to the child that has committed the foul, I think there's an assumption there that by us doing that, it'll stop that child ever fouling again. And that's just nonsense. There's just no truth in that. It's a learning process. It's going to take a long time. The only way they're going to get better at it is by doing more tackles. A child who commits a foul, they know they're not allowed to do that before they've done it. You know, it's not news to them when I say, "Oh, by the way, you're not allowed to kick someone. You've got to kick the ball." They know that already. So this idea of just having a conversation to fix it is just misguided. It's like if a child misses an open goal, and then I say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, no, 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 no! Next time, score a goal." That doesn't guarantee that they're always going to score goals in future. It doesn't work like that, and it's the same principle here with the tackling.
one thing that I think we probably would get asked is, well, my child's always complaining they're being fouled, and they are always being fouled. So how do I raise their spirits a little bit? Um, one thing I'd suggest is explain that the best players in the world are often also the most fouled, and you can use your Messis and all that sort of stuff as examples of this. And it's true that they often are. So you use that as a positive and explain to them that yeah, you're being fouled because you may be better than some of these players, and they're not meaning to foul you. They can't catch you. They can't time the tackle because you're getting past them or whatever. And maybe then it just gives them a little bit of confidence and for, oh, actually, yeah, and especially when you start using the players, the actual players that are getting fouled a lot. So yeah, that'd definitely be a tip.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I'd wrote here is there a root cause? If your child is always being fouled, is there a root cause? Aside, let's assume that they're not the best player on the pitch, then is it that they're holding on to the ball too long? And naturally, then you are probably at some point going to get fouled just by virtue of having the ball more than you probably should be. Are they asking for the ball in positions when they shouldn't be, where there's maybe they're already marked tightly or there's lots of players around them? So we'd argue then it's probably a coaching point, and the coach should be helping them with that. But that could be something that you talk to your child about is, well, you could have passed it quicker there, and that would have meant that you didn't get fouled, but you tried to take on that extra player and just giving him some help there maybe, or asking the coach for help on that. But I think that's probably something as well that I were thinking about this over the weekend, and I probably like, yeah, actually that could probably happen, and it's not as easy as thinking or zooming in and thinking, oh well, my kid's just being fouled. It's like, well, is there something bigger going on here? If they're always being fouled, I don't know what you think about
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, good point. Good
that.
point.
But yeah, I think if if something's happening at training, if something's happening with the same player, maybe same child continuously, then there might be a case for having a conversation with the coach and going back to the entering the pitch thing. That doesn't mean you enter the pitch and chastise this child. It'd be a conversation with the coach on their own, just to explain. Look, I think there's something happening here. He's complaining, she's complaining that he or she is continuously kicking them and doing things out of view. Because that's the other thing parents also need to understand is coaches will not see everything, just like referees don't see everything. So there might be things happening. The coach isn't aware of it. And again, that's not a free pass for you to enter the field and start dictating things. It's for you to talk to the coach because then the coach can be aware of it. children have if a child is deliberately fouling or deliberately doing things physically that they shouldn't be, they have a great way of doing that out of sight of the coaches sometimes, in our experience. Because why would they do it in front of the coaches if they were doing it deliberately? So talk to the coach, talk to your child's trainer at the end of the session or whenever, message and stuff, and just explain, go at it in the right way. That's going to help the situation more. The coach can then be aware of it and deal with it if there's something is happening. That's one thing I'd like parents to take away, particularly with the level that we're at. Is it's not it's there might be something happening, but that's all. It's just the way you then go about it to solve the problem, not just running on a pitch and shouting at kids.
Yeah, yeah,
I think. But yeah, like we said, the take the positives from things like this, and this is how you can use the sport. It's like being able to handle themselves and character building and just cracking on all that resilience stuff that we talk about. These buzzwords that have been used now for a while, but it's true. It's you can use sport for these things if you allow it to happen instead of trying to control every little thing. Your child's probably not going to want to quit football just because they've been fouled once at their training session on Saturday. It's a bit uncomfortable, yeah, but that just builds this resilience muscle, doesn't it, longer term? So hopefully hopefully that helps. Is there anything else from your side, Nick, you wanted to throw in?
no, I think that's the main one. Yeah, just try to look at the positive aspects of it. If your child is all right, they're not genuinely hurt, and they're able to carry on, and they do carry on, yeah, then look at that as a positive, and just think about your reaction to how things are happening, and with your reaction, if you can control it, try to react in a way that's going to encourage your child to react more positively in those situations in future, whether that's putting in a tackle themselves or being on the end of a tackle. But yeah, with a view to them getting not just better at football, but also just being able to handle themselves a bit more and a bit more battle hardened
Mm.
for more generally, really.
You could go down the Spartan route, obviously, like I did.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
from birth.
yeah.
The other thing I wanted to touch on what was the academy thing and that higher level football, because I think some parents do get in touch with us, and that's where they're coming at. That's where they're coming at with. They probably understand their child needs to develop that little bit of aggression and desire and will to win. Like we said, to do that with, if you're messaging me with an 8-year-old child who's pushing for academies and you're asking me as a 39-year-old man to help them with their aggression and desire in a one-to-one session, it's not going to happen. We can talk to them about it and talk to them about some of the things they can do from maybe a tackling technique point of view, whatever. But one thing that I'd probably suggest is rev review their training sessions that you're exposing them to, and ask yourself, are they in an environment where this might develop naturally as a result of the training that they're doing? Are they doing a lot of unopposed stuff? Are they doing a lot of cone stuff, dribbling and all that sort of thing? And are they doing less opposed things, less 1v1 work and less small-sided games where these these things might happen, like with what we do, these things might happen naturally because they're forced to go into tackles and be tackled because of because by virtue of the fact they're playing more opposed training, more opposed games. That's one way. I'm not saying that's going to solve the problem. Some kids it takes years. Some kids just don't. Some kids don't ever develop that desire. But that'd be one thing I'd look at if I'm that parent, where the kid is technically fantastic. They are pushing for these academies and whatever else, but they just feel like once they get in those places, they go into their shell. They don't like the physicality and all that sort of stuff. Then ask yourself what are they doing at their training away from that? Is it too much unopposed because they probably that's not going to help them develop that desire, is it? Again, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another just general point would be value tackling, like whether that's a coach or a parent. Obviously, you're going to praise and say well done if a child scores an amazing goal or a pass or something like that. Have the same reactions to tackling. That's how they're going to learn that tackling is a good thing and a positive thing to do, and it's going to encourage them to do it more and more. So yeah. Just look at the benefits of it and celebrate when they do some good
Yeah,
tackles.
yeah, yeah. It's a really good point. It's a really good point.
so well if you get them, if you get the off the ball stuff happening and you get that physical competitive game happening where there's pressure on the ball constantly. That's
Yeah.
developing that's developing decision makers, but it comes from the praising the tackling side of things.
Yeah, it is a great point. I've spoke before. We did a tackling one a while back, and I've spoke before about how my granddad probably knew I wasn't blessed with natural footballing ability, so he used to he used to hammer the other stuff, and I just started to realize that, oh yeah, I can get some praise here from doing something like this that seems to be a little bit easier than dribbling past three players and putting it in top corner. But naturally, then developed a desire to do it, and I think it's such an underused thing. But tackling's a massive part of football, and that might be that could become their superpower. So yeah, pushing it and promoting it and rewarding it as well is a big thing. Because if you get a kid that's good on the ball and then has all that stuff off the ball, they're a lot. Yeah, you've got yourself a player. Um, right. Thank you, as always, everybody, for listening. Any questions, drop them in the comments. If you subscribe, you'll be updated as soon as we release an episode. We try and do one a month, but we do want to do stuff whereby it's what you want to listen to. You want advice on. I think this has been one of those, but we're going to do next one will be some community questions as well. So get them in if you want to us to answer anything as best we can. But yeah, thank you for listening.